The Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, is going to announce, we are told, a further 2p cut to national insurance when he delivers his spring budget today. Just a couple of hours' time. We'll take it live here on TalkTV. It's going to leave 27 million workers £450 a year better off. That's on top of the £450 that he gave back to us of, by the way, our own money in November with an earlier 2p national insurance cut. The question is, though, is it going to really make a difference? Well, joining us right now is Lord Hayward. He's a Conservative peer and pollster. Good morning to you, Lord Hayward.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now, it's very unusual, is it not? You and I have both been around some years, but it's pretty unusual to have Treasury officials confirming a major rabbit from the hat. It's one thing having people talking about, isn't it going to happen? This 2p national insurance cut is definitely going to happen. Does that tell you, first of all, that there's another rabbit from the hat that's going to be announced? We are in an election year, and it's probably going to be a cut on income tax?
I think it's unlikely to be income tax. First of all, dealing with the national insurance thing, like you, I was really surprised, and I had to check that this wasn't just kind of confident speculation, because it is so utterly abnormal to have an announcement of one of the big budget decisions being announced in advance. I think any other changes will not relate to income tax.
Oh, okay.
Partly because it's expensive, and partly because the consideration of the Treasury seems to have been on the basis of either or, not a question of both.
But that's what we've been told, which makes me think there's something else, because I have to say, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Commons Speaker, if he was on more solid ground in his job right now, not relying on Tory support, would, I think, have and may well still have something to say at the beginning of the budget about how announcements are supposed to be made to elected members of Parliament first and not to, you know, political editors of national newspapers.
Absolutely right. And there is no question that there will be other announcements in there, whatever form they are. There will be, to use your phrase, there'll be rabbits coming out of the hat, probably multiple rather than individual rabbits. They will be relatively small, but they will be attractive to certain parts of the country, to certain groups of people, whatever they may happen to be. But there's no question, and you were discussing it just now, that this will all be part of preparations for an election later in the year, not early.
Now, this is the thing. Lots of speculation has been that, well, you know, if there's going to be tax cuts now, whether it's national insurance or basic rate tax, again, it still comes out of the same pot. It goes into the same pot, and people know whether they are rich or poor at the end of the month. So it doesn't make any difference to most people who are working, certainly, who national insurance would affect, which it is. Although it's less inflationary than an income tax cut because it affects more people. But lots of people are saying this means it's likely to be a spring election. So he'll announce an election. He could go as late as the 26th of March to announce May the 2nd, same day as mayoral and local elections this month. You've been adamant from word go, there is not going to be a spring election. Why do you think this means we're still definitely going for a, is it October election?
In October, early November, as far as I'm concerned, as you say, I've been clear about that for months and months and months. People, when they get a tax cut in whatever form it may happen to be, whether it's big enough or small enough, too small, it takes a while for people to register it. They don't suddenly look at their pay packet at the end of the month and say, oh, whoopee, we've got a reduction of whatever the sum may happen to be. Now I'm going to change my... People change their approach to a government, to a political party, the opposition or other parties over a period of time. So there's no question that any announcement today, and one's got to remember that the sums are going to be relatively small because we've had COVID, we've got Ukraine to deal with, big expenditures which we're recovering from. The actual sums of money, relatively small, so it takes time to work through for people to benefit and feel that benefit.
Yeah. And even if they do feel that benefit, and lots of people are pointing out it's £900 in total that's been handed back to us of our own money by the Chancellor with his twice 2p national insurance cuts. But the reality is people's cost of living has gone up by far more than that over time, and we've still got sky-high inflation compared to what we normally used to. And allied to that, with the tax thresholds being frozen, there's no chance of Labour changing those because they'll be wanting to benefit from those as well. More and more people in really average, normal jobs will be paying the tax rate that is was supposed to be a tax rate that was for, you know, bank managers, not someone who, you know, who works at, you know, on the tills at a bank, for goodness sake. So an awful lot of people, no matter how much money the government gives them back to them of their own money, are still going to be poorer than they were a few years ago. And this comes back to the old line, you know, the really old lines in American, you know, elections. It's the economy, stupid. And do you feel better off or not? There's not going to be very many people who are going to go into the next election, whenever it is, going, you know, I feel pretty good. Unless you were selling PPE, pretty much people aren't going to be better off, Richard. Robert, are they?
Right, and it's quite interesting. Governments around the world are facing exactly the same issue, primarily because they've been tackling the same problems and funding projects to deal with COVID and all sorts of things. But the German government would die for the Conservatives' poll ratings in this country at somewhere between 20 and 27%, because they're in the mid-teens. And so there is a massive problem. As you say, people aren't suddenly going to change their approach. And this is where the communications do matter from the government. And they have failed to get that message across for a number of different reasons, that actually the Brits, like other countries around the world, are facing major problems. And therefore, as you say, the odd tax adjustment is not immediately going to have a reaction from the electorate saying, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, we know that fuel duty is going to be frozen again. No one's raised fuel duty for, what, 13 years. That wasn't going to happen anyway. They're extending the energy windfall tax. We're going to be talking about that to Alex Salmon. We know Tories in Scotland are angry about that. Closing tax loopholes for people who own second homes that they use as holiday rentals. Again, not going to be many people who are going to be upset about that. An increase in duty on business class airfares. I don't get business class flights. I don't care. Lots of people say the same. Change the rules on non-dom tax status. I don't think we have to worry about the super rich, the only people who pay 30 grand to get non-dom tax status. So I think most people would say, not our problem. All of those things, again, people might welcome them. They may well be good for coffers. They may be closing loopholes. There may be things that certain people don't like, but they're not game changers. A question I'm asking our audience today is, what could the Chancellor announce in the budget that would sway your vote? You're a pollster. You're also a Tory peer. You've got skin in the game on all counts. What could he announce? What should he announce today that would change things? When you look at those polls, Labour, you know, 20 points ahead in some polls.
I think if he makes an announcement that actually a whole raft of industry, business, commerce, one category of huge employers come out and say, that's great, we wanted that. Because as you say, that list of things that you went through just now, they don't generate that much money. You know, the odd 300 million, the odd 200 million, when the government's spending literally billions a week.
Yeah.
One thing that I think would psychologically have a big change, which industry, commerce and the hospitality industry has been pushing for, is actually the ending of visitors, in terms of, at the moment, they cannot claim the VAT back.
Yeah.
And the hospitality industry, tourism, leisure, have been pressing the government that should change, bring it back in line with what European competitors do. It would be embarrassing because it was actually Rishi that imposed the change when he was Chancellor. But that is the sort of thing
that wouldn't make a difference.
It's not individuals.
Do you know what?
But
do you know what annoys me
it.
about that, though, Robert? Is that, you know, let's have a tax cut. So we'll all pay VAT on a load of these goods. So a load of people who are really struggling have to pay VAT. But some rich foreigners who come over here, who can afford to come on a holiday here to do their big spending, they are going to get the tax cut. It really offends me, but I realise financially we all will benefit from them being in the hotels, being in the restaurants, getting cabs and all that stuff. So we have to. But yet again, this is the thing. Rich people keep getting tax cuts because they're the people who...
Yes, there is a benefit to them. But as you just identified in your series of comments, it's industry, hospitality industry, employing more people and generating more wealth for the people who are actually working in those locations. That you asked me for an example.
That would be the sort of thing.
Circumstance. Yeah. Specific tax changes for individuals, unless they are very expensive, and you were discussing some of them earlier on, like changing the thresholds, for example, those sorts of changes are expensive and actually benefit a relatively small number of people.
OK, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much
Great.
indeed. Lord Hayward, Robert Hayward there.